This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's July 21st, 2026. On this day in 1855, crews laid the last stone of Tennessee's state capitol building, 59 years after the state became a state. It took decades to decide which community should be the seat of the state's government, and in an era with no bulldozers, cranes, or power drills, construction itself took a decade. So shifting that last stone into place was a moment that was a long time coming. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context and backstory from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Just deciding where to locate a state capitol was a huge headache for early Tennessee leaders. Like I said, it bounced around between Nashville, Knoxville, Murfreesboro, and for a single day, Kingston. When a new constitution was drafted in 1834, the people at that meeting spent a lot of time discussing a permanent capital location, but couldn't reach any kind of real agreement. About a decade later, as the legislature met at the Davidson County Courthouse, every organized town and city in the state was given the opportunity to make a pitch why it should be the state capital. A lot of them tried and failed to convince lawmakers. Eventually, it came down to a heated debate between Nashville and Murfreesboro on the logic that the capital should at least be somewhat near the center of the state. And ultimately, the point that probably put things over the line for Nashville was the donation of a prominent piece of hilltop property for the Capitol building itself. Although at least one guy representing Rutherford County took issue with that, accusing Nashvillians of trying to buy the state's favor. Another Murfreesboro backer said it would be a mistake to put the government in a city that he called a, quote, political Sodom. William Strickland does not seem to have had any such problems with the city. He was a renowned engineer and architect who apprenticed under the man who built the U.S. Capitol. As his career progressed, he designed and constructed several significant public buildings in Philadelphia. Taking the Tennessee statehouse job meant Strickland moved to Nashville, and Nashvillians took advantage of having him in town. Several families commissioned him to design elaborate grave monuments. He designed a courthouse for Wilson County, which later burned, and one religious congregation downtown hired him to design what is now called the Downtown Presbyterian Church. For the church, Strickland built in the very trendy Egyptian revival style that was having a moment in the 1840s. For the state capitol, Strickland used cutting-edge techniques for the time. It was one of the first buildings in the nation to use structural iron roof trusses. Those were paired with stone in a conscious effort to make the building as fireproof as possible. But when it came to style, the architect stuck to the tried and true look for American government buildings, Greek revival. The tower and cupola on top of the building are designed to look like a monument from ancient Athens called the Lantern of Demosthenes. It used to be open to the public as an observatory. And the rest of the building was designed to house an awful lot of state government that isn't there anymore. Today, its official functions are mostly confined to the legislative chambers and the governor's office and meeting rooms. But originally, the state Supreme Court met there. One double-decker room was the original state library. There was a hall of records, even a small museum, and an arsenal in the basement level. William Strickland died midway through construction, which led to the most surprising part of the building. His body was laid to rest within the walls of the structure in a niche on the north portico, looking in the direction of where the Bicentennial Mall is now. Even after that last stone was laid, there was plenty of work left to be done on the interior and on the grounds. The legislature started meeting there while it was still a construction zone, but the building itself wasn't considered finished until 1859. During the Civil War, the still unfinished outdoor terraces were repurposed into a sort of fortress, and the park-like grounds were finally completed in the 1870s. Now, if you're interested in the backstory of some other Nashville buildings or to find out what happened to the original statue of Mercury that stood on top of Union Station for decades, be sure to tune into today's episode of This is Nashville. It will be Curious Nashville's monthly takeover of the show with a handful of local history and architecture experts. And in just a few minutes, some Nashville musicians who aren't comfortable with the direction a lot of patriotism takes these days are still finding ways to stake their claim to the American flag. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
Particularly with this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Tonight, Nashville's Metro Council will consider finalizing new legislation to regulate data centers. A key environmental safeguard was stripped out earlier this month, which could have serious consequences for public health and the environment. But WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports a proposed amendment could change that.
In its current form, the legislation provides two loopholes for fossil fuels. It allows data centers to power up with on-site gas turbines or diesel generators, which could essentially serve as private power plants. That poses serious risk for Nashville's air quality. Just look to Memphis. Elon Musk's XAI facility has its own gas turbines that create more nitrogen oxide pollution than TVA's largest coal plant. Councilperson Clay Capp introduced an ordinance to help prevent what's happening there in Nashville. His amendment sets up clear limits for fossil fuel use, allows unlimited renewables like solar, geothermal, and batteries, since they won't pollute the city, and creates incentives for companies that source half their power from renewables. Some folks say this legislation has been too rushed and the results could be sloppy. The Southern Alliance for Clean Energy last week urged city officials to only pass the proposed moratorium, like so many other cities in the nation, to allow time to strengthen the regulations. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
The family of a man who was fatally shot multiple times in a Burger King by a Memphis Safe Task Force officer is demanding answers. On the morning of May 13th, Darren Pigram was working at the restaurant when an officer from the Drug Enforcement Agency came to serve a warrant. The officer who fired his weapon says Pigram reached for a gun in his waistband. However, the man's family and attorney tell the Tennessee Lookout that they've reviewed security footage from the restaurant. They say the video does not show Pigram reaching for a gun or posing a threat to the officer. Officials haven't said whether they actually recovered a firearm from Pigram. The Memphis District Attorney's Office did not respond to the Lookout's question last week, and the TBI says it doesn't comment on ongoing investigations. The killing of Darren Pigram was the first of 4 fatal shootings by members of the Memphis Safe Task Force in 2 months. All 4 of those killed were black men. The NAACP has sent a letter to the acting U.S. Attorney General calling for a suspension of the task force's operations and a full investigation into recent killings. The next death row inmate scheduled for lethal injection wants a new execution doctor. TDOC is expected to put Anthony Darrell Hines to death on August 13th. His attorneys want the court to order TDOC to hire a new doctor before the scheduled execution. And if that's not possible, they want the state to delay his capital punishment until it can hire someone. Typically, the doctor is there to call the time of death. But when the medical staff fails to place a traditional IV in the inmate's arms, the doctor is expected to place a central line in a deeper vein. Dr. Mark Fowler tried and failed to carry out this task in the last execution. TDOC has refused to confirm whether Fowler will staff Hines' execution. The defense attorneys say keeping Fowler around puts Hines at risk of torturous pain. Hines has several health complications. He had a stroke last year, and the prison's medical contractor never provided the prescribed medication because they didn't have it on hand. Hines had a second stroke in January. He collapsed in his cell and hit his head. He's been partially paralyzed in the infirmary since, leading to severe muscle loss. His attorneys say it's likely that will make placing a traditional IV difficult, and there's a good chance Hines will need a central line placed. Faith leaders and Republican state senators called on Governor Bill Lee to halt executions and commission an independent investigation into the lethal injection program. In a recent interview, he said that wasn't necessary. As Tennessee voters begin casting election ballots, one subject that's front and center is the legislature's abrupt redrawing of congressional districts. Multiple voters told WPLN they're bothered by what they saw as blatant partisanship and the splicing apart of communities. In Franklin, retired Election Commission employee Paula McCord says she used to see the parties work together more fairly on redistricting.
They only did it for one purpose, and that was to disenfranchise with the black people and with the Democrats in Memphis, all the way through, to make sure that Trump holds his spot and keeps his his supermajority. That's not. It's not the right way to do things. I'm sorry. That's how I feel.
Memphis and Nashville are each now split across 3 congressional districts, some of which stretch long distances and combine rural and urban areas. While voters in places like Antioch, Glen Cliff, and Nashboro Village are now in the state's 4th congressional district. Prior to redistricting, the 4th was limited to Rutherford County and further south. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams explains who South Nashville voters are represented by and who they can cast ballots for.
Republican Scott Desjardins has held that seat for 14 years, and he is running for re-election. He's a bit controversial, anti-abortion legislator who was recorded pressuring a mistress to have one. He is facing challenges from 3 very similar candidates in his party, all veterans, all conservative, Trump agenda aligned, though Desjardins is the one with the actual Trump endorsement. And there is a potential interesting race shaping up for the general election, given that one of the Democratic candidates has out-fundraised even Desjardins, and that's Mike Cortese, a current Nashville Metro Council member.
Cortese will be fending off challenges from a few other Democratic nominee hopefuls, although all with far less funding. Meanwhile, former Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam is backing a Republican challenger to incumbent U.S. Representative Andy Ogles for the District 5 primary. Haslam endorsed former Tennessee Agriculture Commissioner Charlie Hatcher late in the race, just as early voting kicked off last week. Haslam has been one of Hatcher's top donors and similarly supported Ogles' previous challenger, Nashville Metro Council member Courtney Johnston. Ogles, on the other hand, received an early endorsement from President Donald Trump last year. Internal polling from the Hatcher campaign puts the race at a virtual tie. Hatcher has out-fundraised Ogles, but in 2024, the 2-term congressman fended off Johnston's challenge, whose campaign was better funded than Hatcher's. Election day for the partisan primaries is August 6th, and early voting is underway now. For more information on all candidates, as well as races in other Tennessee congressional districts, visit WPLN.org. The Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame has announced its 56th round of nominees. That list always includes hit-making heavyweights, but senior music writer Julie Height finds this group to be particularly notable.
The Hall of Fame named nominees in 2 different categories, contemporary songwriters and contemporary songwriter artists. But the professional trajectories of some of this year's candidates have helped redefine the relationship between writing and performing. Though he's categorized purely as a songwriter, Sean Camp started off the 90s with his own record deal. Didn't know my heart was in harm's way. But ended the decade supplying other artists with number ones. By the 2000s, he'd established his reputation for coming up with classics. Chris Stapleton, on the other hand, is in the writer-artist category on the strength of the gravitas and grit he's balanced in his music, but he worked up to that by first writing for others. Then there are Miranda Lambert and Taylor Swift, both nominated as writer-artists. Each began carving out their careers with a singer-songwriter mentality.
Oh, promises we made when we go walking. That's just me and Charlie talking.
And it was partially thanks to the personalized touch they gave their songs that writer-artists have been the Nashville norm since. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
Students at Belmont University's Frist College of Medicine are in a difficult position. The med school's first cohort is halfway through the 4-year program, and now its attempt to gain accreditation has been paused in probationary status, and that first class won't know the results until the end of their final year. Belmont will offer a refund if any of them want to leave for another school. Neither Belmont nor the national board that oversees all U.S. med schools have explained the root cause of the delay in accreditation. The Nashville Banner reports faculty turnover has been very high, with some physicians expressing concern over the school's lack of connection to a specific hospital. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. The American flag has long appeared everywhere from clothing to cookout decorations to country song lyrics. But in recent years, some feel the stars and stripes have become more a symbol of political division than national unity. Senior music writer Julie Height spoke with a couple of country acts who found ways of freeing the flag from that narrow meaning.
There's a long history of patriotic themes in country music, and they've often transcended political leanings. Not so under President Trump's Make America Great Again movement. Recent songs from country stars Morgan Wallen, Brantley Gilbert, and Lee Brice portray their side as the only one that can claim the American flag. Pinkbeard, an independent country artist from Alabama, isn't interested in drawing battle lines. His song Ice on the Road is an appeal to meet differences between people with compassion.
If they gun me down, I bet no one care. A lot of babies in the ground saying thoughts and prayers.
The chorus arrives as a series of questions. Pinkbeard wants to know how the targeting of immigrants squares with people's beliefs, no matter who they voted for.
Tell me in secret, where are your neighbors? When did you last see them? Is anything great yet? Have you met Jesus? And what was he teaching? Did you believe him?
Pinkbeard paired the song with a pensive photo of himself in a straw cowboy hat and sleeveless Western shirt printed with the American flag. This is a guy who dyes his beard fuchsia. Nothing about his look is accidental. He's certainly contemplated how others will see him.
He's like a 6-foot-tall black man, pink beard, brown eyes. And that's just a list of attributes. But I felt like wearing the things put a real, like a weight. Like, I am an African American. This is my lived experience, in other words. So visually, I wanted people to know that, like, oh, okay, this isn't just some guy who's riding some country wave, trying to pick on country artists. No.
Because Pinkbeard's one of them. He's written Grammy-winning songs for big-name pop stars, but he's fully embraced his lifelong country leanings in his own music. And he takes pride in mentioning that he's the son of an Army veteran.
The iconography of the American flag has kind of been sequestered to one side. This is ours, and when we do it, this flag represents this. And I'm like, no, that flag represents everybody here, and I have just as much right to it as anybody. The flag doesn't lean right or left. The flag is not liberal or conservative.
That doesn't mean it's an easy emblem to interpret right now. Just ask the Cowgays, a new queer country trio with a mischievous streak. The group's first social media posts showed them singing their tongue-in-cheek, gospel-style debut single in front of the American flag.
Clap your hands for Jesus, hallelujah, praise the Lord. I don't wish I wasn't gay no more.
And they knew exactly what they were doing, reclaiming a symbol and a sound. Here's Cowgays member Adam Mack.
I think a lot of people feel like country music isn't theirs. Like it doesn't belong to them because they don't believe the same things that they assume all country music singers believe. We want to push for a better America, so why can't that flag stand for our values?
A few commenters were confused by seeing them testify to shedding homophobia in front of Old Glory. And for reason, says Chris Hausman, who's also in the trio.
The flag stays the same, the colors on it stay the same, but what the flag means changes constantly.
Bandmate Brooke Eden experienced the evolution firsthand. As a solo artist, she released a song called American Dreamin' a dozen years ago. President Obama was in office, and Eden wasn't yet out. Back then, she felt accepted as an all-American girl. Now, not so much.
You're only allowed to be American if you're like white and blonde and straight, you know?
The Cowgays found Eden's leftover American Dreamin' merch t-shirts adorned with the American flag, and Mack reports that they've given them an update.
And we've like cropped them all and made them into like the gayest little 4th of July crop tops.
They've also reflected on the country music of their youths, 90s country, a decade of rollicking songs, outsized performances, and broad depictions of American identity. It wasn't until 9/11 that country music took a particularly combative turn towards songs vowing to punish overseas enemies. The Cowgays see possibility in getting back to the 90s spirit that preceded that, says Hausman.
The Cowgays are like a little time machine. Pre-9/11, 90s country where you get the songs that joyful and you get a little queer representation too.
In red, white, and blue, of course. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. That little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.